Hey guys, today we're going to be learning about percents. So if you have this paper here, you'll be filling it out as we go. If you do not have the paper, no worries. You can do it in your notebook. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, we need to look at what a percent is. A percent is a ratio of a part of per 100. So think about it. If I give you 100% of a pie, you got the whole thing, it's yours. But if I take 75%, or you only have 75% of something, it's only part of that pie. So let's say I take a big old slice out. Now you have a portion of the pie, and of course we can create a ratio from that. You have a ratio of the whole thing. One of the things that we're going to review is that, as you remember with ratios, you always want to put, and this is not on that worksheet, you want to put part over whole when you create your fraction. And you might want to write this on the side of your worksheet or in your notes, put it somewhere, put a bubble around it to remember it's always part to whole. So let's practice turning these percents into some fractions. So if I have 23%, there's two ways you can do this. You can change this into a decimal by, right here's where the decimal's at right now, moving it over, and now it's 0.23. Or you can just take it straight out of 100, the part to whole. Just like the 3 is in the hundredths place. So I find it a little bit easier just to go ahead and throw the part to whole over it. I have 23 parts out of 100, or 23% out of 100%. With this one, it'd be the same thing, part to whole. So I have 5 out of 100. Now, one of the things I didn't do here is what? I didn't reduce, right? Or simplify. So again, you want to put on your sheet here, maybe somewhere underneath the definition, simplify. So can I simplify or reduce 23 over 100? No, it's already reduced. But I can simplify the 5 over 100 to equal 1/20. How did I get that? Hopefully you guys remember that if I divide by 5, I gotta divide that one by 5. At this time, I want you to go ahead and pause, and I want you to try and turn the 102% into a fraction. Okay, so you should have gotten 102 over 100 and then simplified to 51 over 50. If you have any questions, please write them down and bring them to class tomorrow. Okay, this again was review, practicing turning those percents back into a ratio fraction. Now let's go ahead and talk about finding the percent of a number. So there are two ways to find the percent of a number. You can use proportion, which we talked about in the last unit, or you can use an equation, which we talked about back in unit 3. I'm going to show you both. You can choose which way works best for you. So let's start with using a proportion. Let's take 18% of 30, okay? So first of all, put this into real life, okay? Let's say that you go out to dinner, out to eat, and your bill's 30%, and you're gonna tip 18%. What would 18% of 30 be? So to solve it as a proportion, I would do 18 over 100, right? Because we're turning this percentage into a ratio, equals what number over 30. Okay? And just like we did in the last unit, we're going to cross multiply. So I have 100 times n equals 18 times 30. Okay? So then, of course, 18 times 30, just a little side work here. Let's see if I can remember. So it's 540. Okay. All right, so now we're going to solve the equation, right? Because we ended up with an equation. We don't know what n is. To get n by itself, we divide by 100. Whatever you do to one side, oh, got my river. Whatever you did to one side, you got to do the other. That cancels out, leaving me with n equals. Now the great thing about multiplying, dividing with 10, 100, thousands is you're just moving the decimal point to the left. So I don't even have to do any kind of fancy work here. I know my decimal, let me get another color here, is back here. And I have 2 zeros, so I can move it 1, 2, and that's my new number. So n is 5.4. Yeah? All right. Let's go and let me show you how to use an equation. I don't think it's that much different, but I'm going to show you anyways. So, where'd my marker go? Oh, there it is. So, using an equation, we're still going to do the 18% of 30, okay? And the difference here is I'm going to move my decimal early because right now my decimal is back here. So I'm going to go ahead and move it 1, 2 places to the left, and now I have 0.18. The word of always means multiply. So I'm going to multiply, and then of course bring down my 30, and I know that that's going to equal a number. So again, if you want to rewrite it, 0.18 times 30 equals n. It's all the same. And then we just solve it, right? We just go ahead and multiply 0.18 times 30. If you look down here, we already took 30 times 18. Kind of looks like a 6 there, so whoosh. And now I have these, I gotta go 1, 2 out with my decimal and then put it right back in the problem, 1, 2 in. So I know that n equals 5.4. Either way works. I suggest you know both ways, but then you pick which one works best for you, what works with your mind. Okay? Again, if you have questions on either one of these, you need to go ahead and write them down and bring them back to class, or you can email me with those questions. Okay, now we're going to do the I do, we do, you do. I'm going to use proportion just because that's what we've been practicing. But again, if you're more comfortable with the equation, then do it. So let's take 8% of 48. Okay, we already said that that's 8 over 100 equals what over 48? Okay, so now that it's set up as a proportion, let's cross multiply. 100 times n equals 8 times 48. 8 times 48 is 384. course, then we're solving that equation. I want to get n by itself. So now I have n. What I do to this side, I have to do to this side. Of course, again, we're dividing by 100. So I have my decimal point back here. I have 2 zeros, so I go 2 places to the left. So my answer is 3.84. Okay, so you watched me do it. Now let's you try. Okay, so on your paper it says using an equation. If you want to practice using an equation, go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and solve it as a proportion. So let's do, I'm going to make one up. Let's do 40% of 72. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the store. I find these really awesome pair of boots. They're $72, but because spring's coming, they're 40% off. Let me see how much money I can save. So I've got 40 over 100 every time I put it over 100. Equals, don't know, a number over 72. I'm then going to cross multiply. And notice this just shows something I remember is when I'm cross multiplying, if I'm going from here, I always put it right here underneath this side. Just like when I multiply this one, I put it underneath this side. But it doesn't really matter as long as it's set up that when you cross multiply, you're multiplying on each side. So 40 times 72 is 28. So 2,880 looks good. Draw my side here. Again, I'm going to divide because I want to get that n by itself. That cancels out. I'm going to divide this side. That great thing of not having to do a bunch of division because I'm dividing by 100, so I'm going to go in 1, 2. So n is 28.80. Now you could write this as just 28.8, but since I was talking about saving money on boots, money always has that cent, so I went ahead and added it. Okay, again, if you have any questions, write them down. But now that I've done an I do, we do, you should have done this one with me. Let's do a you do. So I want you to try these. I want you to find 12% of 90. And let's go ahead and do 72% of 200. So you're going to go ahead and pause, solve these, and when you come back, I'll have the answers for you. Okay, so here are our answers of the you do it. So if you look here, I got 12% of 90. Look how I set it up. I got my fraction, 12 over 100, and n equals n over 90. I cross multiplied. And then I divided by 100 to get n by itself, which gave me 10.8. You can see over here how I got the 1080 by multiplying 90 times 12. Hopefully you got the same thing. All right, 72% of 200. Same thing, exact same way every time. Cross multiply, solve for n, did my work over here, 200 times 72. These little bumps right here are me moving that decimal because the decimal's at the end. Because I'm dividing by 100, I can take those out. So I got to take out these. You can look at it the same way. So I move my decimal 2 places. That gave me 144.00. You could just write it as 144. Okay, that's our lesson for today on finding the percent of a number. If you have any questions, you can email me, bring them to class. If you're not in my class, please feel free to respond below. Thanks, guys.